Welcome to part 4 of this series. Today we're going to talk about the great presets available in Divismate 2, how they're such a great learning tool, how you can edit them and get ideas and see how the different combinations of instruments work together and against each other with different harmonic ideas in each register and their sweet spots and all this kind of stuff. Great way to learn. And you also have to understand how these presets are set up to get the most out of them. So we're going to continue on of what we've been learning. A couple things to mention first. If you do get a stuck note, I'm finding that if you just turn the system off and on up here with this button, it seems to unstick the note. I don't know if there's a dedicated button for that somewhere, but I'm finding that works. I tried to create more than one instance of Divismate 2 inside my DAW, but so far I don't know how to do that. If somebody does know how, just write a comment below. So let's get into these presets. They are great. There's so much potential, so much to learn. My mind has just been floating with all these new things and new ways to understand these combinations of instruments. So let's start kind of at the beginning. You want to for sure download all the available free presets because they're great. And the way you would do that is once you download them, you have them in your system tray, then you can drag them to your quick load menu, which I dragged them all out there. And now I have them available. So let's just go over the understanding of what these are. Factory performance are very simple presets just to give you an idea of what's what and how things are laid out. And then the universal orchestral core is they give you all the basics, which are very simple presets. But then as you go deeper into the pages, you end up with some pretty complex tutti and unison combinations, but it's made for any instrument from any different supplier like Berlin or Spitfire. They're universal ideas, all right? And that's the core. And then you have the voicings, how these instruments can be voiced in very musical ways. Gives you so many great ideas. And then the rhythms, which add motion to all that. And we probably won't get that far today because that's a whole new beast. The Prime Edition, you may think, well, you can't, that's not for you because you don't have the VSL edition, Prime Edition. Don't think that way at all. They're just simply really great presets. They happen to have made them for the Prime Edition, but they'll work with anybody's instruments. You just make sure you have them set up the same way, and you can definitely learn and get so much inspiration. Do not avoid these because you think you don't have the VSL edition. They're great. Let's go back to the Orchestrate page and make sure we're on the very simple factory performances. So let's start at the first one. And each one tells us what they're set up to do. So up here, this one just has 4 ports set up. And today on my port 1, I have the piccolo flute. Port 2 is a flute. 3 is flute 2, and 4 is oboe 1. And in this case, this preset, I'm told by looking at this, I can say, well, if you just start jamming away, you're not going to get what you want. If I just play, for example, if I play any notes down out of range, first of all, you won't even hear them, and you'll think, what's up with that? But if you were paying attention to the last video, you probably know that these are set up to be played in the melody section. And when you have several instruments stacked up, they'll be playing in a unison idea. And if they have transpose, that will be a wider open unison system. And if they have more than just octave movements in the transposer, then you're going to have some complex harmony here. And you're most likely just want to play one note at a time, right? But because they're just up and down by an octave, there's nothing too complex, which means we should be able to play a chord, one note, still sounding good. If we add the third note for a triad, okay, that still sounds very harmonious because there's no conflicts with the different transposing up here. But I would say initially it's made for one note, but because there's nothing complex, again, you could play more than one note, it works fine. And just remember, these instruments are high instruments, high register instruments. You're not going to hear anything down here, right? Just for people new to this, you don't want to run into that. Another thing that might get you is that you may be playing notes or a pattern that is outside the bar, and if I play something, you're not going to hear it, even though it's within the registers of these instruments. You're still not hearing anything and wondering what's up with this. You're probably saying, oh, that's one crappy preset I don't even hear. Well, it's because you need to make sure you capture those notes. All right, on to the next preset. Orchestration. Now, here we have 3 notes on, which means it's not a melody, it's not in unison in this case. You can tell right away it's made for a triad. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to only play a triad. You could add more and connect more, but that's the preset. You know, we're looking at how to play these and understand these presets. So it's made for a triad initially, and we have 2 transposers, one for an octave down, and we have another one for an octave down. So no complex harmony, but it opens up whatever you play. So if I play one note, and remember it's getting a little bit lower register, and you can barely hear that. But if I play a chord which is meant to hear, then you can get the more fullness. Let me just turn it up a little bit so you can hear these demonstrations a little better. So it's set up to take your flute, your high instruments, separate them a little bit with transposers, and play a triad. That's basically it, and it sounds really nice. Open chords. Let's go to the next one. And we see a very similar situation, but it's for a more complex chord. So in this case, we could add something like a lower note. And we have a oboe in there, which can play a little bit lower. And let's see what we get. So again, very simple. A 4-chord note, or a 4-note chord, I should say, plugged into 4 instruments. And again, I have these high instruments up here in the woodwinds. Very simple. Let's move on. Now this next one is a little more interesting. We can see that it's made for a chord, a triad. We can see, though, that it's only going to play one instrument. And we can see an A here. So let's play one chord, one triad, and make sure, let's get my little RTS system here set up to give us what we want. And we hear nothing because it's not in the range. Let's move it up 1 octave. And we begin to hear some motion. Let's move it up again because these are still high instruments. So what this is doing is, if I click the A, we're getting one instrument, which is a piccolo flute, playing a triad, but the triad is going to this arp, which is playing a very simple little musical idea. And we'll get into this another day because this is, again, very interesting. And I should mention, I'm trying to figure out how to just play a simple envelope and not have any motion and just have like a sustained string or clarinet or something play a control the expression of it over time. And I'm figuring there must be a way to turn off the motion. If anybody knows how to just get a simple envelope out of this, I know you can go down here and set it to something and draw it in, but I'm finding the motion still plays over it. So if you know how to do that, let me know. I appreciate that. So in this case, we have exactly that, just a triad being played to one instrument, and that instrument has motion. Quite simple. Now let's go over to something like the Universal Orchestral Core. These load up. We have a bunch of different pages. There's a lot of them. And you'll find that on page number 1, we have all the standards for woodwinds. Let me just grab some water here. All right, so we have 3 flutes. We'll just click on this and see what we have. Again, something we've seen before. Nice little triad here, but nothing new. These are all basics, and here we have unison, so they'll be stacked in a using the melody system here. So this is meant to be played one note with a little bit of openness. It looks like 2 octaves up for the piccolo, super high, and 1 up for one of the flutes. So it's going to play these 3 instruments are going to be played in unison according to whatever note is in the range here. But again, if there's no complex transposers up here, you should be able to play a triad and sound decent. Well, it's pretty high, probably way too high. Let's bring it down. Let's capture the note that's missing there. Move it down. So that's something we could use. It's just a big open chords with these 3 instruments. So nothing really new there. Let's keep moving. Again, this would be 3 flutes open, so that's very similar. And unison oboe, there's nothing new there. Let's go to a couple pages down where things start to heat up a little bit, get a little bit more complex. Let's see what this is. So now we're dealing with brass. So we're going to be horns 1, 2, 3, and 4. It looks like it's set up for a triad, 3 notes incoming, but it does have some transposers, but they're just octave transposers. So we should be able to play these chords, of course, no problem. And the horns, that's on the very high register of the horns. So let's take it down. And again, that just shows you how important it is to play the instruments in their best ranges, their sweet spots. Like when I started, it was quite high. That's too high. Now that's a much sweeter. Now if we go too low, we might get too far down in the register, but let's see what this combination sounds like. And of course we don't have to worry about any range slider because it's set up for the triad, and that's just the horn section with some opening it up a little bit with the transposers up. All right, let's keep moving. Let's go to something more complex. Now we have the full brass section here. They're all turned on, and we have transposers. Looks like octave transposers. Let's see if they all are. Looks like they all are. We'll just try one more here. Yeah, some up and down. So it's trying to take your notes and spread them out a little bit, register-wise. So let's play a 4-note. So let's add a C2 note. That will help for the lower part registers of some of these lower brass instruments. Now let's see what that sounds like. Now that's very low because we're playing in a very low register. Let's go up the register. Up further. So that gives us, with one 4-note chord, gives us a big full brass orchestra section going here. All the instruments, several of them are moved up and down on the register to open it up even more to get that very low range and high range. Sounds beautiful. Like this preset, very simple, and of course we know what it is. It's the brass choir, and it shows all the instruments it's going to use. So if you read that, over time you'll begin to understand what these presets are quite quickly. Now if we want to look at something in a more unison, bigger orchestra, all kind of stacked up, we got the brass, we've got looks like 5 brass stacked in a unison with a couple of transposers, again very simple transposers. So far we have no complex harmonies going on here. We'll get to that. So if I play one note, notice up here you're not hearing anything. That's because these instruments, which are trombone and lower trombone and tuba, are going to be really sounding down here. Again, just be aware of the registers. And because there's no complex harmony, I should be able to play a big fat chord. So we get that nice deep brass sound in a more unison fashion where they're all playing the same. So, you know, these are different colors, different flavors for different conditions that you need for your song ideas. Let's move to that, because there's so many. Let's go to something where we have combinations now of more instruments. One simple one at the beginning here of combinations really shows you when different instruments are used in unison together. This time we have violins, 2 violins, violin 1 and 2. This one is up an octave, and it'll be playing in unison with the flute and the second flute, and it's up an octave. So really a high, so we want to be playing in a higher register. But we may want to go as low as we can and see if we can. And there's no complex harmonies. We should be able to play. You see, you hear how nice that is? Go up an octave and play. And that's simply in unison, flutes with a couple violins. You're getting a new color and really an interesting setup here. Very simple, but it's totally a new sound. So our new orchestration, that's a very simple mixing of two instruments and moving it up and down the register slightly. Let's keep moving. Let's not do a unison, but let's do strings, flutes, and two clarinets. A little more interesting, a little more flavor here. Now we're set up for a complex chord of 4 notes. We have flutes, we have clarinets, we have a bigger section of the strings, and I can imagine the register we want to be in is still on the higher range. Somewhere around here would probably be the sweet spot. And let's just make sure we're in the right register and we're set up with 4-note chord. We are. That would be on the lower end of these instruments. Let's take it up an octave. And another octave. And we pushed it too far there because that's quite high. These 2 octaves, this range here is the sweet spot for my ears in this combination. So a lot to work with there. Let's keep moving. Even bigger situation. Now we're dealing with full strings, including the double bass, with some harmony. So it's just opened up, no complex harmony yet, but this is set to go way down so we could play higher up on the register, but that double bass is still going to be kicking in there. Let's full brass, a little bit of percussion with the timpani, and we have woodwinds up here with a big setup. I imagine there might be some complex harmony, but we'll try full chords. And since it's showing us that, yeah, you could play a big fat chord, I don't think they're going to have complex harmony here. A little higher. So big, fat, full sound, but that's not the entire orchestra. So it gets bigger, and there's no motion in this. This is just one voicing, one way to set these instruments up and play them in different ranges with different chords. Next, let's go to the final page, which they don't have the 5th page in this section here. So let's go to another one, low tutti closed 3-part, or how about dramatic tutti 3-part with a bunch of instruments. Let's see what that sounds like. Similar situation, 3 notes for the chord. Let's and if we go fill voices and we add the second one here without even hooking it up to anything, should get some lower. let's hook it up to the fourth to the double bass, and the fourth note hooked up to the tuba. Now when we go down an octave, we should get a big fat low sound. We get that big lower end, and still the ability to play higher up. And if we move it up, but that's not a range I would use this for. I think I've set it up here, added some low end. I think we would want to play it down here to get that big, heavy sound. And it sounds like maybe there is a bit of harmony going on here. Let's just see. Not just octaves, but is that just my imagination? Well, maybe not. Seemed like it was doing a little bit of harmonic action down there. So now let's move on to something like the voicings, the universal orchestral voicings. So these load up, and again, very simple at the beginning here. Let's start to get into it with a brass open. Let's go with something with multiple sections in it. Strings. Let's see if there's a fifth page. There is. Let's go to mixed triad large, or maybe start not so grand. Let's get into that. Now we see we've got a unison type situation with the melody, and it's got the woodwinds, and it's got some violins, some strings. And let's play a chord in a register that will, and let's grab those. So this is exactly what I mean by there. I would guarantee there's some kind of harmony mixing here, because I'm playing a chord and it's starting to sound more cluster. So let's look. There's got to be some, yeah, so there's a -3 semitones down. And when they start to do things like this, playing a chord will probably not be what you want to use this particular, unless you're looking for that cluster sound, that very unharmonious sound. So that's what they have going here. So this one would be set up for playing single notes. But it's still giving you a really nice sound of violins and the woodwinds. But it's made to give you a color of this combination, meaning that it's some of these instruments are changed the harmony to be a little bit more complex than just octaves up and down, which is what music's all about. And so it gives you this a very interesting, beautiful color. Let's see if we could play it with just 2 notes. So now, just if you play 2 notes, I kind of like this color for a certain situation. You may want this flavor. You may want to bring in a little bit of discontent, a little bit of possible problems in your storyline for your music. Now if you were to add another note, a triad, it just starts to cluster and get too out of whack, so to speak. So those are your options looking at these different presets. Hopefully you've kind of got a little bit of understanding. Now, of course, if you're a professional or you know about music and you've been orchestrating, this is all just simple, basic understanding. But for anybody who's used to something like the Orchestra Complete and maybe a little bit of Opus, and they want to learn more, they want to know how, people orchestrate big, elaborate setups like this and what's involved. These presets that I've been showing really give you that kind of grand way of orchestrating and getting these colors. So this one's set up for one note. I'm pretty sure there's some complex stuff going. And so, of course, that's a more grand, unison, complex setup here, but it is a beautiful, majestic color that you may want for some part of your music. So we could go on, and the video could go on for 2 hours as I go through these hundreds, but it's a similar idea when you get to prime chord. These are similar. I'll just click one here. Again, set up for the prime chord, but I have a standard library of instruments here, and it should still work. We want to keep in mind this is a big orchestration here. It looks like unison, but it has 3 open here. So I'm thinking maybe you could play a chord. Let's play one note. Let's play a chord. Let's drag this to capture that. And correct, because they're telling you here that it's all unison, but it's not complex, too complex that you can't play a chord. And so they have 3 active here, which is kind of letting me know that, yeah, try playing a chord with this. And so let's do that. Well, that's a beautiful color. Oh, you could do all kinds of stuff with this. Let's take it up higher. Oh yeah. So you get what I'm saying here. These all the combinations that I'm showing, all these different presets, when used correctly with a little bit of knowledge, you could just do fantastic things with these. And there's tons of them, and highly recommended to do what I'm doing. Just go in here and learn as much as you can. That's what I'm trying to do. That's why I got this. I want more complex harmony. I want more colors. And Divismate 2 is giving us more to do, more presets, adding motion, more inputs, a more streamlined interface where you can have sub-menus here and you can really set it up the way you want it, save it as a preset, and off you go. All right, hope you enjoyed this video, or at least got something out of it, and we shall see you on the next video.